Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're going to do another visit to one of my local breweries here in County Durham in England, and for this one we're doing a second visit down to Newton Aycliffe. So we're going to want to do my second video from the Steam Machine Brewing Company, and we've got one of their less kind of beastly beers today. The last one I reviewed from these guys was the Treacle Toffee Stout, and that was a monster of a beer. So for this one we're going to have a taste of the red IPA. It comes in at 6.5%, hopped with Summit and Simcoe, and I did actually try this beer when they had their pop-up bar in Durham, and I really enjoyed it, but I've never actually tried it with a properly kind of fresh palate. If you've watched my channel before, you will know that I absolutely love red IPAs and amber IPAs and things like this. It's a style that I really like, but you don't see all that much of anymore, so really interested to try this one with a fresh palate, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews I've done from Steam Machine Brewing before. No doubt there will be some more in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beers based on country, city or state, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Steam Machine Brewery then. So as I mentioned to you before, Steam Machine are based in Newton Aycliffe, and they were founded back in 2015 by Nick and Gulan Smith, and they basically started up the company with a small business loan they received after they returned from the Channel Islands, where Nick had been working as a science teacher. It actually seems to be a really common occurrence around here that science teachers tend to go into brewing. The guys at Durham Brewery also did that, and maybe that's something that I'll end up doing later, who knows. But the brewery itself is apparently an old wartime munitions factory, and they also have their brew room there, and people can come in and try the beers made fresh from the brewery. I do need to go down and have a little look at that at some point over in the next couple of weeks. But over the last few years they've been gradually expanding, and they've received mentoring from Richard Branson as well, after Nick shared a train journey with him, so they've had some kind of business input to that, and that has helped the brewery start doing really well. My first encounter that I had with these guys was actually in Glasgow, because Hippo Beers, which is now defunct of course, they had the Treacle Toffee Stout in there, and that was just how my kind of connections to Steam Machine Brewery came about. I went into the little pop-up bar and got chatting to the guys in there, which was really cool, and hopefully I can volunteer at their bar for a little bit. Nick was saying that I could go in and volunteer. I just need to see if I actually have time to do that over my teacher training year, of course. But a really nice brewery, really nice people behind it, and you know, that's what you want in the craft beer industry. They've got quite a few different cans as well. I think there's 5 or 6 different beers in the can. There's the one that's I forget what it's called, the tea beer. They've got the red IPA, the session IPA, and they also have the Treacle Toffee Stout. I've got a feeling there's a porter or something like that as well, but they do some really nice beers, and have a taste of them if you get the chance. I'm not sure how widely available they are throughout the rest of England, but I know we can get them in Scotland, and you can get them around the kind of County Durham area. But anyway, let's get on and actually taste this beer. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. I do actually really like the artwork they have on this one, these kind of old kind of wacky machine things. There seems to, I'm not sure what the point of the owl is right enough, there seems to be a big craze about owls and stuff going around just now. But I really do like that style of artwork they have on there. Somebody like Peter over at the Clueless Drinker, who's more into his art and things, will be able to tell you more about the styles and things. I just think it's, you know, I can just tell you I think it's really cool. On the back here it says red IPA, 6.5%, a modern East Coast inspired IPA, malt forward with some great speciality British grains, but powerfully hopped with resinous pine, including Simcoe and Summit. Really nice hops there. Simcoe of course can give you some beautiful kind of passion fruit flavours. But without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. A little bit of smoke on the opening there, and we'll get it out and into the glass. I'm not sure if when I tried this beer at the pop-up bar, I'm not sure if it was on draft or whether they just opened up a can behind the bar. I actually can't quite remember, because I think they do have some beers that they produce on draft only. But yeah, if I hold this one up to the light, I'm not sure how well you can see that with the camera right enough, it looks quite dark, but if I hold it up to the light, it's actually quite a nice, almost dark kind of ruby, slightly chestnutty colour. You're not going to see that too well on the camera, unfortunately, just because of the lighting in here. But with this one, I'd say about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, kind of creamy beige head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, and quite a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But overall, it looks really nice, and it does look quite like I remember it. But as I say, hold it up to the light, and then you'll see the true colour of this one, because the camera isn't really doing it justice on this. And you can smell some of these nice caramelly and fruity notes coming off this as you just move it around. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. So yeah, with this one, like they were saying, you can really smell the sort of malty notes in this one. English malt I always find is really distinctive because it has that sort of grainy presence to it. There may well be some Scottish malt in there, right enough, but there's always that sort of grainy, cereally type thing to English malts and stuff. It's not quite as sweet as the likes of or as smooth as the German malts, for example, and kind of bready in that sense, or it's not quite as sweet as the American ones and stuff like that. There are, of course, other malts out there. And in Japan, things like that, they like to use local brewing techniques with craft beer as well, which is always interesting. But yeah, with this one, you can smell definitely some of this almost brown bready character. There's a bit of grainy sort of cereal note in there. Bit of caramel, I would say, as well, and a bit of biscuit. So there is that little bit of a kind of underpinning sweetness to it. Bit of earthiness from the hops, I would say, as well. And you can smell some of that sort of floral aromatic note, but there's a good bit of little juicy fruity character coming off it as well. So on the fruity side of things, it does actually lean towards a kind of red fruity character. But yeah, I'd say a kind of candied red fruit. It reminds me a little bit of these Haribo kind of Star Mix sweets. It's almost got a little bit of a blackberry note to it, which is quite interesting. But normally, like I said, it's usually passion fruit that you'd get from Simcoe. Summit, I know, is one that's kind of commonly added, and it starts to give you like blackberries and red fruits and things, depending on the style of beer that you put it into, depending how you mix it with the malts, of course. But it's a really quite interesting smelling beer, this one. If I was to smell this blind, I wouldn't think it's meant to be an American style beer. I would think it's some sort of, just because of the malt base and stuff in it, I would think it's more of a real ale than a craft beer, if that makes sense. So that's probably a good way to sum up the aroma of this one. But as I always say, just take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma for yourself and the beer. But let's have a go at this one then. So this is the Red IPA from Steam Machine Brewing Company in Newton Aycliffe in County Durham in England. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Yeah, it's interesting, this one. What I'll say about it right away, and I remember it being like this, it's not going to blow your head in terms of IBUs. It's not going to blow your head away with bitterness and things like that. The malt base is interesting. You get that nice, that typical. It's almost a little bit like it has a kind of real ale malt base to it, but then it's got a bit of that American hop presence. So in a way, it's maybe a good kind of bridging beer for the kind of traditional real ale drinkers to get into some of the American styles, actually. That's probably a good way to kind of summarise this beer, but we want to go a bit more in depth with it, of course. So yeah, with this one you've got a nice bready base to it. On top of that you can get some of those kind of cereally sort of things, and then there's some nice sweet caramel in there, a little bit of biscuit. If you go right into the middle of the palate, that's where you're starting to get these kind of caramelly notes, and the biscuit sitting there. It's got a little bit of a kind of toasted character to it as well, I would say. Yeah, there's definitely a kind of toasted element to this one. You can feel, as you progress further into the flavour, you start to feel a little bit of that kind of roasted malt note coming out, which is quite interesting. On the hoppy side of things, that kind of roasted malt actually is building a good bridge between the hops. In the back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness there. If I remember rightly, that is a property that you normally expect of Summit. As you come along the front sides of the palate, you can pick up some of those kind of piney, resiny notes, and again, I think that is the Summit. Usually the passion fruit, I find it's a little bit more kind of floral and aromatic, but for me this one definitely is a little bit more piney. As you go round the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and grassy, and then of course just behind the very front curve of the palate, that's where you'll get that little oily bubble where the fruity esters come out of the beer. And you can detect, I think you can pick up a little bit of that sort of tropical note with this beer. You can pick up a little tiny bit of that passion fruit, but it's almost like the kind of malt base in this one's just pushing that back a little bit, and it sort of evolves into a kind of more sort of berryish, kind of red fruity note out of the beer, I would say. It's almost like it's got a little bit of blackberry or blackcurrant, something like that, and then it progresses in to being a sort of candied red fruit. So I say it quite a lot in my reviews, but those little heart-shaped sweets that you get in the Haribo Star Mix, it's kind of got a little bit of that. You've seen how long it was since I took a sip of this beer now. It's starting to get to that type of flavour on the fruity side of things, but the blackberries and the black currants and things are sitting lying there as well. But yeah, that graininess, I would say as well, as the beer kind of mellows out a little bit, that sort of graininess that it has starts to push its way out too. So it's a really interesting beer. I think a good way to summarise this one is it's almost like a really good bridging beer between the sort of real ales and the American craft beers, because it's got that nice American hoppiness, but then it has that sort of typical English real ale kind of malt base to it. So it's a really interesting concept. I'm not sure if that's exactly what Nick was going for with it right enough, and that's just my sort of interpretation of it, but it's a nice beer and I quite enjoyed it. I would love to see him try this, take that kind of hop profile and stuff he's got, and use use American malts like Turo and things like that. It would be really interesting, because I think he's got the hoppy side of this beer really well, so it would be interesting to see an American version this beer with the slightly sweeter malts as well, and see how that goes. But it's a nice beer, and if it sounds like you would enjoy it, have a go at it, because the beers that these guys are producing are good quality. You can tell that right away. So in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say mid-bodied. Carbonation's very smooth on this. It's quite an oily mouthfeel. There's a good bit of hoppy bitterness, like I was saying. There's a bit of balance in the malt base between the sweetness, but the roasted characters and the sort of cereally bitterness starts to push its way out a little bit later too, and there's a bit of a kind of juicy fruity character in there as well. But overall, it's a nice beer. Like I said, a good way to summarise this one is that it's a good bridge between the English real ales and the kind of American hoppy bitterness. So if it sounds like it's up your street, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed my take on this one. I do have a taste of some of these beers. I really recommend the Treacle Toffee Stout from these guys. The Session IPA is really nice as well, and it's kind of got, from what I remember, the Session IPA has that same feel. It's like an English malt base with the American kind of hoppy bitterness as well, so have a go at that. It's kind of similar in feel to that, but obviously a slightly different style. But Steam Machine Brewery, I think, are one to keep an eye on, so I'm looking forward to seeing them experiment a little bit more as they kind of grow and grow. But a really nice beer, the Red IPA from Steam Machine Brewing Company in Newton Aycliffe in County Durham in England. Once again, thank you for watching my reviews, and I will catch you guys very soon. Cheers just now.